We need deeds, not words. And that's what my campaign is about. I don't want to be having these same arguments in 8 years. I want to step down as president after 8 years, having gotten a huge number of things done, and I don't actually even care if I get credit for it. I'm running for president to solve problems. I think the problem in this country is we haven't done things for decades, and huge numbers of the American people have been left behind. The world's changed tremendously because of globalization and technological innovation. It's been positive for lots of people, but not positive for so many of our citizens. And that's destabilized our country, and it's destabilizing the world. So I want to be the president that actually starts fixing those problems and put the worker at the center of it. I announced back in August of 2017. And the reason I announced so early is because I think I'm the right person for the job and I have the right vision for our future. But at the time, not enough people knew who I was. So in my opinion, the best way to solve that problem is to get out early and work really hard and go to the early states. We can't be, like some of the people I'm running against, the party of economic walls to rules-based free trade. That in many ways is not a lot different than Trump's physical walls. So I want to lead internationally, I want to fix healthcare, I want to tackle climate, I want to change the fiscal trajectory, and I want to build an economy based on what's happening in the world with technology so that all Americans have good jobs. The first thing I got to call him out for is lies, because he lies all the time. He said he'd be the best president for farmers. He's been the worst. He said Mexico would pay for the wall. That didn't happen. When he throws a punch at you, you got to throw one back, and I'm from Jersey. I know how to do that. But then what you really got to do is tell the American people what you're going to do for them. It's got to be about how we're going to get things done, how I'm going to get things done as president to make life better for the American people around their kitchen table. Mitch McConnell was a huge obstacle to President Obama. I think what he did was unpatriotic. You know, when you say when you got a new president in the Oval Office that you're going to block everything that person does, that's not putting the interest of the American people first. You got to have an outside strategy appealing to the American people to put pressure on McConnell, but then you got to have an inside strategy. You got to work with Congress. Study after study has concluded that if all the bills were paid at Medicare rates, which is what is specifically called for in the single-payer Medicare for all bill, then we would see a dramatic reduction in the number of healthcare facilities in this country, and we'd see a diminution of quality and access. And I think Medicare for all would cause upheaval to our system, and that would hurt Americans. That's why it's bad policy. It's bad politics for a very simple reason. Half the American people have private health insurance. Many of them like it. And I don't see why the Democratic Party suddenly wants to run on taking that away from them. I'm not saying health insurance is perfect, it's not. But we should be the party of addition, not the party of subtraction. There's been a lot of disruption in the heartland based on globalization and technological innovation. And we haven't put forth real policies to support these folks. And they've seen us focused on a lot of other issues, many of which I agree with and I think are important, but they really don't get to the kitchen table or the pocketbook issues of American families. We have to make sure we're focusing on jobs and wages, building infrastructure, right? Creating incentives for people to invest in these communities. Again, I always say you got to put the worker at the center of everything you're doing. I never get asked about the Mueller report when I'm outside of Washington. And I think in part it's a little hard to follow. There's like 50 stories a day on the thing. People lose track. And you got to remember 40% of the American people can't afford their basic necessities, their housing bills, their rent or their utilities or even their food needs. And so these people aren't sitting around worried about the Mueller report. I think people are going to rightly say, well, what are you doing for me? The opportunity to pursue your own kind of pursuit of happiness, like the opportunity to support yourself and support your family, the opportunity to potentially do better than your parents. You need a society and institutions in our society that enable that to happen. You have to work hard, absolutely. You have to be responsible for yourself and your community, absolutely. You got to play by the rules, absolutely. But you also need a helping hand. You need the right public education. You need health care that you can afford when you need it. You need to live in a community where there's actually jobs being created. If you live in a community where there's no jobs being created, it's almost impossible to live the American dream.